Hello and welcome to the third episode of The Comic Book Network. I'm your host, Ian.
And I'm your co-host, Ethan.
And this is your other co-host, Jeffrey. Say hi, Jeffrey. He can't. He's legally mute and he has been since the age of 5. It probably wasn't the best idea to put him on this podcast, but we do want to guarantee you that he's there and that we have friends.
We have lots of friends.
Including Thanos, who's a very well-developed friend.
Well, yeah, from the end credit scenes, I really feel like I can connect to him and know him.
He's actually here in the room right now, sitting on his golden throne. You can kind of see an aura of just development and...
Potato chips, mostly.
Well, yeah, that would be the second thing. That's a much more unpleasant and salty aura, but
yeah.
I'd say overall you can just see him grow as a person, as a purple person, and it's amazing to watch. So today we're talking about Marvel and DC's extended universe, specifically their TV shows, like The Flash, Arrow, what else? Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., Agent Carter, Daredevil, all that stuff. We're going to focus more on the recent ones, try to stay away from their animated series, though those can be great. Like Teen Titans Go, that's quality right there.
Hilarious and original.
Yeah, Thanos would fit right in. So, from what I know, you tend to lean more to the DC side of the extended universe. What are your thoughts on their shows?
Yeah, it's interesting. I like a lot more Marvel comics and Marvel movies, but when it comes to the shows, I enjoy watching DC shows. Like, I like to watch The Flash. It's a good show. I'm sure many of you have seen it. And it's really cool to see the character development, and in a show needs like constant action every single episode. So it's interesting how they can fit that in there and how they make kind of excuses, if you will, to be able to put in supervillain after supervillain without really just, there's many supervillains just coming out of nowhere.
Right, and that definitely contrasts with the Marvel side of things, where they're more exploring life outside of superheroes, or on the fringes of superhero-dom. They don't go directly for the big action pieces and the big Marvel heroes. They go with the agents and the small town inspectors and detectives and attorneys, but I think both have been doing great. I tend to lean more towards the Marvel side of things just because of the depth of each of their shows. In fact, I've been really enjoying the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. despite it having had a rough start and sort of being different than some of the other comic shows on television.
Well, like you were saying, the semi-superheroes, another DC show that I like to watch is The Arrow, which I just recently got back into that because beforehand, earlier in the seasons, I stopped watching because I wanted to wait until they could afford stage lights.
And strong female protagonists who don't, whine all the time.
Yeah, they're still working on that.
Yep.
And then another show that I think is really interesting to watch is, if you watch The Flash and The Arrow, is The Legends of Tomorrow, I believe it's called. And it takes some of the subplots, sub-characters from those two shows and brings them together in their travel through time, and you get more background about them and background about what's been happening, what's caused everything, and what's going to happen.
Yeah, and that one's fairly new, so can't say a lot of conclusive things about it, but so far it's had great effects, and most of the characters are great as long as they're not like Hawkman repeating his history every second of the day.
And then Hawkwoman changing her mind if she loves him every 3 seconds of the day.
Yeah, but other than that, it's off to a good start, and I like a lot of the characters.
Yeah.
Definitely. So, like I was saying, the DC extended universe seems to delve into the actual superheroics sort of thing. Do you have any ideas or opinions on why they'd be going more the superhero approach rather than what Marvel's been doing, which is branching out?
Well, they do have normal people as well.
Right.
But they do a lot of superhero approach too for constant action, and I like how they explained it with the particle accelerator exploding, why before the Flash came about there weren't any villains. Like in Spider-Man, you don't really see that,
Right.
It's just Spider-Man's here, so obviously there's villains now.
Yeah, and honestly, it might have been partly due to Marvel's unsuccessful or relatively unsuccessful kicks with the lesser superheroes and lesser characters, which have grown over time, but they never really reached the same superhero level as some of the ones on Flash and Arrow or Thanos.
Thanos all the way.
That's really my main point here.
That's good.
Thanos should have a TV show.
Thanos should have multiple TV shows.
A DC TV show.
A DC TV show.
One that focuses on superheroes.
And him sitting in his chair.
And Jeffrey.
Jeffrey too. Jeffrey could do the voice acting.
He'd be a great voice actor. Like, really listen to his impression of Thanos. Ready?
Oh, this guy.
Good stuff, man.
This guy, freaking savage, dude.
I know. Can you believe what comes out of this guy's mouth? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. His vocal cords are,
part-time mute, full-time savage.
Absolutely.
Actually, full-time mute as well.
He did sign some very funny things, though, so if you know sign language, feel free to come over and ask some questions to Jeffrey. We're considering having him on as full-time cast member,
Yeah, tell us what you guys would think about that.
Yeah, because he can't.
He can't, no.
Except in writing.
Unfortunate, but funny, all the same.
True, yeah. Absolutely. So, another thing I've been liking about the Marvel TV shows is their exploration of other aspects of superhero life and other genres. Like, Marvel's TV shows Marvel's movies focus heavily on just the action and the Thanos, pretty much. But the superhero set pieces, that sort of thing. And they often miss the real life relatability that some of the DC movies already have built into them. So in a way, both are compensating for what they lose in the movies, in the films. So yeah, which is why I've enjoyed Marvel almost more. I'd say DC does it a lot better when I'm looking for comic book accuracy and just characters that I can know and relate to. But overall, Marvel's just had more interesting storylines, interesting characters and stuff like that. Like Thanos. So, have you gotten a chance to see Supergirl?
I have not. Unfortunately, I feel
Oh,
so missing out.
absolutely. It is practically a national tragedy that you haven't seen it yet. But it started off very iffy, sort of the the Agent Carter brand of in your face feminism look. Girls can do this stuff too, which don't get me wrong is great, but they do it in a way that makes it look kind of weak and makes it look kind of absurd
Yeah.
in a sense. But what I've been liking about that show is that it's been improving, been adding more notable characters, and
Like our show. We
Right.
added Jeffrey.
we did add Jeffrey, and he is undoubtedly a notable character, if only for his voice. Say something real quick, Jeffrey. Dope, dope, dope.
Nice.
he's a real lady killer.
Yeah.
Definitely. He at least a couple yesterday. I didn't look in the bags, but we can only assume, you know.
Yeah, I think the ones that had hair still sticking out of them might have been the ladies
Right, yeah,
with
yeah.
longer hair.
Thanos was nodding in approval,
Yes.
so that was kind of a breakout moment for his character, I'd
And
say.
his neck.
And his neck.
I mean, there's
It
got to be at least dust on that thing by now.
right. He mostly just stares straight, and turning your head can be a strenuous activity, you know?
I suppose it could.
I've tried it once, but it did not turn out very well.
It did turn.
It did all the way around, which was kind of frightening for the family, but otherwise it was a good experience. But like I said, it's been improving, and I've been more hesitant to judge superhero shows based on their first season after seeing Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., because that's grown into one of my favorite Marvel TV shows. And obviously, the Jessica Jones and Daredevil are doing really well in popular media, but I think a lot of people tend to overlook the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., which is a lot more drama, but still presented in a interesting and quick way.
Superhero-esque way.
Right. But from the perspective of agents. And considering how many of their characters have showed up in comics, it's fair to say that they've had a good amount of success, which is nice. So, if you had to choose one show that was your favorite out of all the comic shows, which would it be and why?
I got to go with The Flash.
Terrible choice. It looks like Jeffrey is mocking you in the background.
Jeffrey, that's not sign
That
language,
is
Jeffrey.
obscene, Jeffrey. That is not American standard.
We apologize for Jeffrey.
Yeah.
We like to keep this show PG.
Right. Absolutely.
So, my favorite show is actually is The Flash because it's been reliable, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Unlike Arrow, which started off terrible, got better. Unlike Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., which started off terrible, got better. Unlike pretty much every show that started off terrible, got better.
Mm-hmm.
The Flash, it started off good, got better.
Yeah, it's had a very strong run so far.
It has.
And has some great characters, like King Shark almost scared me to death.
King Shark was about as relatable as Thanos.
Absolutely. It actually scared our extra co-host, Samantha, to death, and that's why she's not here with us today.
Hey, Jeffrey the Lady Killer.
Absolutely. That's depressing, but it is true. So, if we've got nothing else to say about that, let's move on to the Reads of the Week. How about?
Reads of the Week. My favorite.
Absolutely.
I always have so much to share.
And what Spider-Man issues have you been reading this week?
Well, I read the second
All
issue,
new.
I believe, of All New, All Different Spider-Man. It was pretty good, some weird characters, but I can see them getting better, other than
The
the fact that,
horoscope villains,
yeah, those.
Scorpio.
And then Spider-Man chasing around a dog with a chicken.
Yeah, that is usually something to avoid unless you're Agent Carter, in which case you send a butler after a flamingo, and that makes sense.
Or you're Rocky Balboa, in which case you send some Creed kid after a chicken.
Or if you're Jeffrey, when you kill ladies.
Slayer.
He's killing me. Dude, he's strangling me right now. Oh, it's crazy.
Alright, lost my train of thought. But yes, I did read that Spider-Man. I read another Spider-Man. I believe it's Web Warriors or something, not the TV show. But it was just a ton of different Spider-Men from different dimensions. And it's a bit slow.
Yeah.
It's pretty slow. But it's interesting to see other variants of Spider-Man.
And there's usually some pretty quick-witted humor when groups of spider people get together.
Or just a long fight. That takes half of the issue.
That's true. There was one recently where Electros of all shapes and sizes and species came together to fight, and I thought that was a pretty interesting sort of battle. There was actually a horse Electro, which seems a little bit funny, but we learned later that it was from the Sarah Jessica Parker universe.
Which makes so much more sense now.
Absolutely. So, my reads of the week are few but great. I tried... Yeah, well... I'll fight
Thanks, Jeffrey.
Yeah, Jeffrey, come on. No obscene gestures. Those are not appropriate even over the airways. My first issue that I read was Strayer, issue 001.
They have high hopes.
Absolutely. They're looking to get into the hundreds at least. But it tells the story of Strayer, who's a bounty hunter, and he kills a Titan led by the School of Grammar, which is not much delved into, but it's a oppressive ruling party over
Grammar Nazis?
Right, absolutely. They did have a swastika. I don't know if that was just part of their uniform or they were trying to start something, but it was there. But it had some strange art. It had sort of rigid and geometric type of art, which can be appealing. I didn't find it personally that great, but the comic overall was enjoyable. The characters had good banter, and even though the plot was sort of cliched in nature, it was entertaining to read, and it approached it from a new way. And my second read of the week, which I was excited about, was Saga number 33. This is a series that's had great art almost always, and they went on a hiatus. I don't know how to pronounce it, but they went on a break for a couple of months, and that definitely slowed their creative process. But I think this issue signifies a restart and sort of their creativity. Right. Don't call it a comeback. They've been here for years, man. You don't want to mess with that. All right, pal?
Yeah. Feel a bit of tension again.
Yeah, no more talking from you, actually. I think I'm going to move Jeffrey to our main co-host.
Go ahead. Take my spot, Jeffrey, in your obscene gestures.
If you can feel the wind or hear it right now, maybe you can kind of interpret how he's signing into the microphone and figure out his reads of the week. It's kind of a little puzzle we've left for you to decipher, and hopefully you enjoy it. But Saga, bringing it back, had great art. I always love their characterization of the planets, the different planets and environments that they go to, It seems like such a small thing, but each of them has a great like personality, and you can see sort of the living, breathing environment there. And a major character was reintroduced. I won't give it away, but he was a little bit tubby, to say the least.
You know, I noticed you said planet, so I thought of a joke.
All right, shoot.
What does an astronaut do for a birthday party? Planet.
That's depressing.
That's pretty good.
Jeffrey, that kind of language is not allowed on this podcast, be it signed or otherwise. Can you believe this guy? He is just an outright fool.
He's pretty mean to me, actually.
He very much is. So, that concludes our Reads of the Week segment.
I'm sure you were thrilled by that.
Absolutely. Jeffrey was, for sure. He's clapping in the background, but in sign language, which isn't actual clapping, surprisingly enough. But we're going to bring it to our question of the week. And we didn't have an email this weekend, though you can get in on it next weekend by sending your questions, comments, concerns, lawsuits, whatever, not lawsuits, but whatever else you like.
I'll accept the lawsuits.
Right. You will?
We'll give them to Jeffrey.
We'll give them to Jeffrey.
He's good with his hands.
Yeah, and money. So, if you write in to thecomicbooknetwork@gmail.com, and it is that easy, THECOMICBOOKNETWORK @gmail.com, you can have your question featured on this very podcast.
Well, not this one, but the next one.
Yeah, we are passing it on to a different podcast completely. You can find your questions answered on Jeffrey's own sign language podcast. It's the first one ever created just for deaf people, and you can't hear anything.
Yes.
It's violently entertaining. So, since we have all...
And yet it still has more emotion than this one.
Yeah, and less women. So, in lieu of the question of the week, we're going to turn to a 30-day challenge. And we're going to start off with their first question, which is, what is your first comic book that you ever read?
Well, for me, I don't know. It counts as a comic book for me. I don't know if you guys are going to be like, it's not superheroes, it's not superheroes. But when I was really little, actually, I used to visit my grandma. We lived close to her. Mm-hmm. And she had these comic books, and they were really old Garfield comic books in black and white. You know, it was like not even a full-size book, but it was just like strips of comics after comics. And
right.
That was probably the first comic book that I ever read.
Uh-huh. And what comics were they?
They were Garfield comics.
Garfield, that's a great guy. I've heard Jeffrey loves him too. But he does have to read it in Braille because he is also blind.
He is blind.
I think we forgot to mention that, but he doesn't actually have a face. That's usually something we bring up first and foremost, but we try to absolve him of any hurt feelings or anything like that. Nonetheless, he does not have a face or ears, so I don't know why we'd be concerned. He is a statue in this dark world. My first comic, if I remember correctly...
Let's hope you do.
Let's hope I do. Was actually an issue of the Legion of Superheroes. It was a Christmas issue, and it was... I've honestly not gotten into the Legion of Superheroes since then, because they don't come up much in pop culture, I guess. They were kind of phased out, save for a few key members. But I really enjoyed it. I liked the thought of stories being moved by pictures, for I was only 6, and that is usually picture stories were kind of my standard at the time. I know you were a brilliant mind reading,
Garfield.
The Hobbit. Oh,
Garfield.
Well, they're on the same level,
They are, really.
You did read the whole of War and Peace, and then you went over...
Yeah, that was a side book.
Yeah, then you went over to the newspaper, and you sort of spent more time on that, I'd say.
Well, I denounced it twice.
But that is
true.
They
didn't have it straight.
Correct. But overall,
I was a prodigy.
Overall, that's what brought me in to the comic scene, got me interested, and I've been reading ever since. And it's been just a great experience up until the day I met Jeffrey. He kind of ruined it all for me.
Slightly, yes.
Yeah, he did kill my first girlfriend, which normally isn't a thing that happens.
Well, she didn't know that she was his girlfriend.
Right. I told her that he was a lady slayer, and I don't think she really fully comprehended what that meant. So the next time they were talking together, I foolishly left them in the same room, and my girlfriend was gone the next day. So that kind of ruined my whole comic experience, and I sort of left.
Great. Moving on.
Okay, I do have a couple tears in my eyes, but I think I can make it through. We thank you all for listening. You can find these episodes on YouTube, on Spreaker, if you want to play it in the background, and hopefully on iTunes at some point. But we haven't gotten it up quite yet. We hope you guys enjoyed this episode. All feedback is appreciated via email or YouTube comments, or even airmail. Though it'll be tougher to find our house based on purely our voices, though I'm sure maybe Jeffrey's hand signals could help you out.
He's signaling our address, guys. Cover the mic.
Careful. But we thank you all for listening, and we hope you enjoy and have a great
Before
day.
you go, do remember to send in main topic ideas, because we like to have stuff to talk about.
Yeah, we do like to talk. It is an enjoyable experience. And we thank you guys for listening.
Have a great day.
Or night.
Or